Let's put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Heavenly Father, we come to you in this hour, asking for your guidance and protection to our virtual gathering today. We thank you for the gift of life, the gift of family, the gift of work, and the gift of friendship. We thank you for this great opportunity to bring us together in this session as brothers and sisters. Bless the committee, the facilitator, and the attendees of this gathering. May we continue to value and appreciate the true essence and meaning of life with the help of your grace. And as we go along our discussion today, we humbly pray that you would deepen our understanding. Lord, enlighten us and give us wisdom every day. Forgive us for our shortcomings and remind us to always be mindful of the things we do in life. We offer our life and our decisions to you, O Lord. May this gathering today create a memorable experience and a fruitful outcome. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, our Redeemer and our Savior. Amen.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, we are joined by our speaker, Assistant Professor Ana Cheryl Ramos. Together with us this afternoon, we have, of course, our project leader, Sir Dave Marshall, and Ma'am Joy is also around. I'm a little bit of doing a multitasking since I'm also sharing the screen, unlike before, no? Okay, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker. You've already known her name, and I'm pretty sure that everyone is very eager to listen to what she can share to us this afternoon. I've noticed the post from the forum. They're very eager. They really want to learn more about the framework, and they're hoping for so much. It's not to put pressure on you, Ma'am Ana, but that's just how excited they are. So, Ma'am Assistant Professor Ramos is the director for the Educational Technology Center. She's teaching at the University of Santo Tomas. No, and currently she's the president of the PELS, Philippine E-Learning Society. No, so like I said, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ma'am Ana Cheryl Ramos, assistant professor Ana Cheryl Ramos. So good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I will stop sharing because Ma'am Ramos is going to be sharing this, her slides. Okay, so take it away, Madam.
Good afternoon po.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sir Dave. Thank you for inviting
Good
me
afternoon,
again
ma'am.
to be part of your project. So I think 2 years ago we had like a similar project prior to pandemic, and we hope that time we were able to help a lot of teachers. Although we are not preparing that time teachers for pandemic, we're actually preparing teachers for a technology pervasive teaching, but not really in, let's say, fully online or in distance mode of instruction. So I think this training is more specific in such that we are able to transition in whatever modes or modalities we are supposed to teach in our school. So I'm going to just share my screen with you. It's not going to be full screen. And then there's a reason for that. I already told our facilitators because I need to switch from one tab to another. All right, so this afternoon, our focus, again, it's still on technology-enhanced flexible learning, particularly with the teaching and learning frameworks and a review of the modalities. But the purpose really is on deepening the knowledge. It's because you have been given the materials ahead of time. And thank you for the questions that you have shared in the discussion forum. They were collated by the organizers. Okay, just to review, this was these were the objectives last time in the asynchronous, like that we need to describe the different flexible integration models, and we have explored the major framework. So we've selected 5 that we think um, would be useful for these current modalities that we are in. Okay, however, today, this is what we're supposed to do. We can still deepen that by participating in the activities as well as bringing in some of the questions that you have, of course, contributed, and it was generated out of your synchronous instruction. And so I need to just, get to know you a bit. So the first question that I would want to ask the team is, how was your remote teaching last school year? So for you to participate, you can just go to slido.com, open another tab, and then you can enter um, the code in front of the screen. So the question here is, how was your remote teaching last year? Is it a hit and miss thing? Everything I imagined for my online classes went well according to plan. This was the hardest thing for me, teaching-wise. So, meron na po ba na nakapasok? Yeah. So, let's just wait for a few seconds. Ayan. So, meron na po tayong 4 participants. It's a hit and miss thing. Everything I imagine. Okay, sige po, no? So, we'll just wait for some more people because we are like 144 here. So some might probably be opening another tab at the same time. So this is also something useful, not just to the organizer of the session or the program, but as well as the administrators from your school, because you can use this for planning for your professional development within your institution. So the institution where you belong. So a lot are still joining, around 33 of you, if you are actually seeing that on the upper part of your screen. And so while we are waiting, we can actually see right here which one of those was in fact the pulse of the group. So it's a hit and miss thing. So this is understandable because everyone was really forced into the different modalities that we can imagine for distance education. So I cannot say fully online because we are, as I guess, we are from different parts of the country. So it's a hit and miss thing. So we are probably did a lot of survival skills along the way to be able to really do it right. Now, even if we have probably less support from our institution or from our colleagues teaching the same thing. So thank you for participating. So this is the summary. So we have like 71%, around 18%. So this is something good. Sorry, 11% for everything I imagine. So ibig sabihin po, there could probably be teachers here wherein they are more prepared. Maybe they are strong in technology. Maybe they are strong in pedagogy to start with, or their content was already ready at that time. So around 20%, medyo mataas pa rin po ito. So this was the hardest for me. So we don't know what's the difficulty would be. But it could be, if we're looking at TPAC, then it could be any of the 3 dimensions. Now let's move into contextual modalities. This is also mentioned last time, I also would want to know, based on the jargon or the classification released by DepEd or Basic Education, I just want to ask what teaching modalities have you used last year? Magkakaiba po kasi ang term din na nagamit, no? Yung hybrid tsaka yung blended. Pag tiningnan mo si Ched, tiningnan mo rin si DepEd, para magkaiba sila ng meaning. So nilagay ko na lang dyan depending on where you are teaching. No? So kung higher ed ka or if you're teaching from basic education. So if we're going to look at this one, online distance learning, that's 45%. So which means to say that your school probably has provided the infrastructure or the technology tools. So if we are going to base this one, then our professional development efforts would as well match the current technologies that you have in your school. Okay, then there would be other efforts that your school would have to provide if you have different modalities running at the same time, no? So, mas mahirap po yun sa school natin because you'll be providing like several sets so that we are able to train the teachers well. Okay, so thank you very much for around 70 of you or 71 of you participated in this. So marami pong nag-go online, so that's good. Okay, but we also have like 8% modular, which means that we are doing the printed module. Ito nga po, no? So, commendable yung ating mga teachers because physically you have to bring this. There's an extra effort in all of this. You have to bring this physically and then retrieve it at the same time, no? So, ayan po. So, ang ating paghanga sa mga teachers who are actually doing the modular and also the blended, no? So kasi imagine mo, instead of one preparation, you are doing several preparation. So just a review, this is what DepEd has released. Ayan naman po, no? So we know this already. This is part of the formal document that they have shared for CHED. We have this one. Okay, we've also talked about that there are some institutions who are applying e-learning in general. However, we need to just qualify some terms. So not all e-learning would be online, okay? Because e here would refer to electronic. So some that are offline, some that are canned, that are saved in a storage media, not necessarily like deployed in a same time delivery, then could still be e-learning. So that's something that we've talked about last time, and that we've also said that e-learning has several varieties. Okay, so may mga self-paced courses, merong mga live sessions like this, and there are also different levels. So although there are different levels, we're not saying that one is better than the other. It's just that that is the best way to deliver a certain online course. We also look at the e-learning spectrum and how does it look like. We've talked about what happened before pandemic. Sinabi natin dito na, well, some schools have actually been using online instruction or have been mixing, blending a lot of online and face-to-face strategies already prior to pandemic. So we've dealt with that last time. This happened during pandemic. We call that remote. And then because we are not ready, we even coined the term emergency. While we thought this could be like something temporary, we know that's going to last. All right. So I've also discussed a bit about the post-pandemic, wherein some of the models that were defined before pre-pandemic were redefined in the context of what's going to happen after pandemic. And so one term that was emerging out of all of the different course models would be the high flex learning, which is a combination of your hybrid as well as your flexible learning. So this, they combine both the online and face-to-face, all because we know that some of our courses really cannot be taught in a fully online, right? So our skills base, just imagine if you have a health allied course. So you cannot simulate everything. Like for example, the pressure on let's say a skill on palpation, no? Yung kinakapa ang pasyente. You cannot simulate that in a simulation program. You have to really feel the actual patient. So hindi rin pwedeng mannequins, for example. So you have to ask the patient then. So those things, and therefore there's a need for us to go back to our limited face-to-face. So this was the reason for high flex learning. Like just imagine you have, let's say, 50% of your class are inside your classroom, while 50%, because we need to have social distancing, we need like 50% of our class wherever they are. So in this situation, there is a redesign of the material in such a way that you have like an activity going on online as well as an activity going on face to face. Or if it's the same activity, then your school must be ready with the infrastructure, because you need to broadcast this live at the same time to your students. So I have collected the question. This was given to me and then put them in proper areas of our discussion. So this was the question given. Are you willing to adopt high flex learning after the pandemic is over, or should we continue with the more traditional method of teaching? Now, I just don't want to claim the answer here. I want you to answer at the same time. You can use the chat because this was asked by one teacher, and probably you also have, some answers that we can suggest to the teacher. So the chat box is open. This is something collaborative at the same time. I'm not the only person who can answer this. So pwede po natin mag-type, no? So to give suggestion, are we willing to adopt high flex? So are you willing to do this? Yung sabay, no? May naka-online yung iba at the same time online nasa face-to-face yung maybe kalahati ng aking class. And should we continue with the traditional? Would you want to go back to the traditional way of teaching after experiencing maybe innovation in the way you teach? Ayan. So you can provide your answers and give suggestion to the teacher who asked this. Ayan. So sabi ni Ma'am Kitaleg, before pandemic, the university is already planning. Okay, maybe for internationalization purposes, you want to expand your student enrollment. Sige po, just keep on contributing. Yes, to high flex with proper training, that's good. We cannot just jump and dive into this right away. Sabi ni Ma'am Dakyao, there's no going back. Technology has provided us with more leverage. Yes, that's correct. So thank you for your contribution. So let me just share with you the take of Chad on this. So and now I'm highlighting what was released in Rappler. So ang sabi po dito, there's no going back for us. Flexible learning will be the new norm. Ayan. So however, when we say flexible learning, we mean several things. Could be, is it the high flex that we are talking about? Because if it's high flex, as sabi ko nga po, there is a redesign of the instruction. There is preparation in terms of the implementation in the infrastructure and the support system by your school to be able to do this really effectively. Ayan. So, hindi siya ganun kadali, no, for some institutions. Okay, there's another question rather. After 3 to 5 years, and COVID's fully neutralized or somewhat, will hybrid or high flex mode of learning be still essential? Ayan. Or will it be the new way of learning? So what do you think of this? Essential pa ba? Well, this is somehow similar, no? That's the last question natin. But will hybrid or high flex still essential? Ayan. So sabi ni Ma'am Sulka, yes, high flex learning could be the solution for health allied sciences or other skills-based courses, let's say on aeronautics, on engineering. So, and even on computer science or when you need to really take hold of a certain hardware, no? And also, I would like to share this with you. Like you have past the survival stage, I think, after a year. I don't think you want to stay within just the first level in this framework, the teacher confidence in the use of technology by Mandinak and Klein. So, sinabi dito that if you are in the survival, for sure over time, as you continue to implement your course plan, improve on your course plan, and how you use technology and align it with all of the approaches, then over time, eventually you will really improve on yourself. So by nature, human nature, you are an adaptive individual. You don't just settle for something less. So over time, you really move in to a different level until such time that you are an innovator. So that's my answer to that. So we don't settle on just surviving. Okay, there's another question still within the modality. No? So considering the diversity of learners and their available resources, what strategies could you suggest to teachers who are teaching the same subject? Ayan. So, but with different modalities. So in a while, I'll touch this again, but just to finish off, what strategies could you suggest to teachers? Well, the easy question here is do a collaborative work. Don't just settle on only on your own expertise. You collaborate with another teacher or a group of teachers. You capitalize on strength and your expertise as well as the experience of the teacher. So when we say collaborative work, we're talking of different areas. So you can collaborate on the course design itself. You can collaborate on the materials development. You can collaborate in terms of the course implementation. Now, there are certain implementation strategy wherein some teachers would subdivide the work. So, for example, some teachers would work on the course design, while others, because probably they are very good in video editing, they are very good with the use of some technology tools to produce materials, then they are the ones in charge of the materials development. And then there are also teachers who are good in the forefront. They are the ones with the teaching load. So they are the ones teaching the students, where other teachers are in the background. So it really depends on the setup of the school. Whereas in some institution, you are doing three things, right? Tama po ba yun? Tayo lahat, no? Ako pa din to. Ako tong nag-design, ako yung nag-develop, ako rin yung magtuturo. Pero let's try. Let's try to do a collaborative work so that this is reduced in terms of a burden. Ayan. Lalo na kung we don't want students to compare teachers. How come this teacher is doing this and this is an assessment? How come this teacher is not doing this and that? So in order for you to standardize instruction, it would be better to have a collaborative effort. Ayan. Now, moving on, still within the modality. So there's another teacher. So as an instructor in higher ed, I'm very excited and teachable. Yeah, thank you for being open. No? So to the models, the technologies, and the framework so that he or she is able to implement this in a flexible mode. So I think I was briefed a while ago by the organizers. This was, I think, well, majority of you would have some issues on uh, students having different technologies or access to technologies. So some would have access while others would have weak. What is the best e-learning or digital model for this? So what do you think? Sige po, if you're going to answer this question, what can you suggest for the teacher asking this question? So before I proceed with giving you my take on this, sige po, let's collaborate in answering this question. What can we suggest to this teacher? No, we're not saying that we are just in the middle of the problem. So for sure, some of you have seen how you have overcome this particular issue. So thank you, Ma'am Mary. She said we can do a pre-recorded videos. Maybe students can watch that offline without really be connected to the internet all the time. Yeah, so Sir Mark said could be blended or hybrid, a mix of offline and online for weak internet connectivity issues. So in one word, what the answer could be consider the practical sense. So consider the context of your students. Because when you ask what's the best is actually what is the context first. That is the solution. Okay, we don't know because the context is different from one to another. So let me now share with you the bandwidth immediacy matrix model that could actually guide us in the decision making of what's the best strategy. So this one, so we have here Daniel Stanford. He was the proponent of this. So he presented a 2x2 table based on bandwidth and immediacy. So when you say bandwidth, it is the rate of data transfer. So with the online tools, so ranging from your low bandwidth, let's say the email, to the high bandwidth, which is, let's say, the Zoom conference. So some educational tools would require high bandwidth and some technology tools would require low bandwidth. For immediacy, this refers to how fast you expect your students and the teachers to interact with each other. Okay lang ba sa yung mag-intay ng sagot or do you want an instantaneous answer? So these are things that we consider when we try to design the lesson. And as well as looking at the context of your students. So moving on, so when you look at the green zone, so it means that it has low bandwidth and low immediacy. So we call this the old but gold. Ayan. So okay lang yan. They may not appear very exciting, but in fact, they can provide a practical foundation. Yeah. So there are situations wherein this would actually work. Like I'm going to post a discussion forum, and then I'm going to give you time to answer. And there's really a reason for this. You want some more reflection on the part of the student. And if that is your purpose, then it's not wrong to use a low bandwidth and low immediacy type of a tool or a strategy. Now moving to the blue one, this is the low bandwidth and high immediacy. So as you can see, there's no video, there's probably no pictures, but we can still maybe just read the text of the teachers. So this could be opportunities for your asynchronous, for your synchronous instruction, but less of a bandwidth. Okay. So this could as well work. Now on the yellow zone here, so this could be useful or effective if you have, let's say, weak internet connection. And so you would want to give students some time to immerse themselves on the lessons. Ito yung sinasabi natin, pwede bang recorded videos na lang? Ayan. So, yun nga lang, it's high bandwidth because you probably would have to log in and download the materials and then watch that offline. Okay. And this is where we are right now. So this is your high bandwidth and high immediacy. So again, tanong, is this the best way to teach a particular lesson in the context where I have? So there's really no best answer to the question. I hope I'm able to answer po, whoever is the one. So in summary, this is what we're talking about. So when we try to replicate the classroom experience to the online experience, parang it's easy for us to think that the best one is this one, the zone red. No? Kasi gusto mo immediate feedback agad, no? But not all the time. So sometimes it's good to have asynchronous because you want students to do reflective thinking. So that is my answer to that question. So in summary for this, consider the flexibility in your remote learning environment. So you try to look into what are the strategies. It's also better to map it out. For example, if you are a teacher in STEM, so you can map out your teaching strategies and the technology tools that you have in those 4 quadrants and choose which one would be best to deliver the content, okay, still achieve the outcome, okay, and then of course, take into consideration the context of your students. Ayan po. Are we good? Kamusta po sila? Are we learning? Kamusta po kayo?
Very much.
Okay, so ito po, tandaan natin, no? So anong solution? Anong best strategy? The context. We can use the BIM or the BIM. Okay, so before we move on to the framework, so let's try another tool. No? So what aspect of online teaching are the most challenging for you? So let's move into, let me just switch. So you will go to menti.com, open another tab, and then enter the code. This time you will do ranking. So these are all tasks of the teacher. And so you will just rank which one is the most difficult. So from your first to the fifth. So let's give you time to do this. So is it designing online lessons? So that would be on deciding on, let's say, the teaching strategy and the tools that are available. Development of online materials. Example would be recording video tutorials. Do you find it difficult to use the technology tool itself? Let's say using, let's say, Zoom. Engaging online learners. So this has something to do with online instruction. Or assessing students online. And maintaining test integrity, no? Kasi sometimes when we give the exam, rampant cheating po, no? Ating sa online. Yan. So issue ba to sa atin? So do I need training on this? On how to achieve academic integrity. Ayan. Sige. So for the school, let's say for the school administrator, this is also important for me to know. Because if I know the challenges of my teachers, then I could tailor fit the training program in my school. So number 1 here, if we're going to look at this, number 1 is how to assess students online and maintain test integrity. Second, engaging online learners, both engaging learners both online and offline. Humahabol po ang course design on the third. Fourth is the development of online materials. And fifth would be using technology. So probably because you can do it on your own. Okay, let me now go back to this one. Thank you for participating in that session. So we've ranked this one. Now, the reason for asking this is because some of the frameworks that I've shared with you would actually prepare you to do those tasks effectively. If you're really like analyzing, why do I need to learn all of this framework? It's actually because there are several tasks along the way in delivering remote instruction. And so when you isolate each of that, then there are frameworks that could actually guide you. So here's another question. So when it comes to learning a new framework, how do you learn it? What will be the best way to learn any framework in the shortest possible time? So let's open the chat again. Keep on giving answers, giving suggestion to the teacher who asked the question. Sige po. Wag pong mahiya. Kasi this would be teacher helping another teacher at the same time. I'm not the sole source of knowledge here. So ano rong pinakamabilis para matutunan mo daw ito? How do you learn it? Implement, try it out. Oo, tama, no? So apply mo siya, doing it, immerse yourself, maybe reading at the same time, practicing, learn from experts. Ayan. So ang dami nating mga tips from other teachers. That's actually very good. Collaborate, learn by doing. So here are my take on this. So one is, yes, you can do self-study initiative. Pwede namang mag-isa because some teachers, are solitary learners. Okay, you can join professional development training katulad nito na at the same time also has an online course component. Tama, Sir Dave, ano? It's not just the training itself. Like, let's say, it's a training. It's a short encounter with you. Pero yung program po natin is we attended an online course at the same time. You can get a certificate out of this. You can also join professional organizations. No? Because they have a program, and then you can share your best practice, let's say in a national conference together. Ayan. So meron din, no? Short but very informative training. Yan. Yung professional development training could also be in-house or it could also be, offered by other accredited institution or companies. Okay, so I just want to share 3 things. No? So in terms of skills development, it's either as a teacher, you can upskill yourself along the way. So when you say upskill, this would be improving yourself, your current performance, so that you'll be good in your current work. For example, nung nag-transition in remote teaching, anong nangyari? I was a former face-to-face teacher. So what will I do? I have to upskill myself so that I'll become an online teacher or I'll become a remote teacher. Ayan. So that's upskilling. No? So tayo po ay nag-train, right? Ng napakadaming mga webinars to be able to be an upskilled teacher. Okay, there's another term that I want to share with you is what we call as reskilling. So it helps a person shift to a new role or adjust to dramatic change in their current role. For example, I'm a regular faculty, but I was, handpicked by my administrators because nakita nila, ay, magaling ako sa technology, for example. Then we can probably be promoted you to an e-learning specialist so that you can mentor other teachers. You cannot just be promoted unless you're also be reskilled. Because when you say an e-learning specialist, you need to have mentoring skills. Hindi lang basta nagte-train. May mentoring, you handhold the teachers. So kailangan mong reskilling with that. And the last here is that cross-skilling. Gusto mo bang mag-change ng career but still within technology? Let's say you want to be a service design thinker. These are new jobs of the future. Would you like to be, let's say, an editorial manager or a social media manager? So that's beyond you being a teacher. So it's a new set of skills. So you call that a cross-skilling skills development. So ano po tayo? Reskill, upskill. For now, baka dati ay non-teaching staff ka na naging online teacher, mukhang cross-skilling yun kasi talagang totally different from your original. Now we move on to TPAC. So there's a question on TPAC here. What are the challenges if you're looking at TPAC? Those three dimensions. What are the challenges in the educational development process? So I'm going to just move forward because I have a few minutes left in my presentation, although we did not start 2 o'clock, no? So when you look at your TPAC, your pedagogy, your technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, so most of the things that we have been observing, hindi lang naman po because there's pandemic, even before. No, some students and faculty at the same time, they have different levels of capacity. So aminin natin, no, may mga teachers na very good with content, but somehow need training for pedagogy and the technology, or some would actually be very good with technology but weak on pedagogy. So tayo naman siguro, before we are even hired by the school, ang taas ng content knowledge expertise natin. And so we also need to add students because they themselves are not, while we expect them to be self-directed, we later learn na hindi naman pala, no? So they need a lot of teaching presence along the way. So another that we have seen is that how you merge them together at the same time and not to look at them in isolation. So that's one thing. We've seen like differing skill sets by the students and the teachers. And so in order for us to do this, if there's one area that is weak, then we can focus our professional development on enhancing some of that. So when we have a TPAC inventory, for example, in the school, then your administrators can tailor fit the professional development, or there are support systems that would actually target this one. So for example, if it's technology tools that are the use of technology tool that is the weakest part, then we can set training programs around it. If the deficiency would later on be on the lesson design, for example, that will be on the pedagogical side, and then therefore some models would be the ones that are going to be focused by your professional development effort. So pwede rin naman po sa assessment. So sometimes would focus on gusto natin strengthen and teacher-centric approaches, then the training would be like this. So, or we can probably have a mix of your student centric or your teacher centric. So an example would be on, let's say, if this is a science class and 5 E's of instruction is the signature pedagogy, then when we do our training, for example, then we can have all the tools aligned within a specific level of what they call this, level of the instructional cycle. So dito papasok yung when do you use the right technology at specific point in the lesson. So that is in fact the TPAC framework is. You don't look at it in isolation. So let's have this just one last example before we really finish everything off. So imagine that we are in a science class. I'm going to use technology in the beginning part of my lesson. That is to engage you. Okay, kasi isa yun sa tinatanong ng mga karamihan, no? How do you engage learners? So number one, when you say engaging learners, it means that there is something as well relevant to their lives. Yun ang pinakauna. So relevant. So this, let's say this lesson has something to do with a lesson on plants. Basic na lang po, plants. At dahil maraming plantitos and plantitas, So I want you to go to joinpd.com and enter SCYVIB. So imagine you are maybe like nasa grade 7 tayo, no? Grade 7 students. Ayan. Mas mababa yung level. So ang ating lesson would be on plant, particularly on life cycle of plants. Nandun sa reproduction part. So 5 students are connected. So I'm going to start the class. So let me just move. Yeah. So this is our scenario. So there are 2 brothers. They saw their mother bought a packet of dried squash seeds. They argued whether or not the dried squash seeds inside the sealed packet, yung nandun daw sa pakete, yun daw po ba ay living o hindi? So ang sabi ni Vios, I think that the dried squash seeds are alive when they are in the sealed packets. So yung kapatid naman niya, I think they are only alive until they are planted in the soil. So which do you agree with the most? We don't have to explain, no? Kasi hindi naman to actual class. So you just imagine that I'm using technology to be able to facilitate an engaging part of my lesson, which is the motivating part. So what you do is that you drag that small circle using your cursor and then drag it. I'm going to show response. So yan po, nag-iisip tayo. Yung mga plantito, plantita, no? So dapat alam natin yan. So kung tayo ba yung nagtanim, ano ba yon? Living or non-living yung seed sa loob. Yan. So I'm going to now lock the screen. So you would stop now answering. Pasensya na po because we don't have the time. Ayan. So yung mga dito sa first part, I think they are alive. No? So yung kay Logie, hindi. Ano ba ang sagot doon? What do you think? Sa mga science teachers. Sino po? Ayan. Si Vios ba? O si Logie? So ang tamang sagot ay? Tamang sagot ay? Ha?
Logie.
Science teacher? Ang sagot ay si Vios. So if you're talking of dormancy in plants, so they are living even if they are suspended in animation for 50 years. So living yon, but it's in suspended animation. Yan. So ang tamang sagot ay Vios. Yan. May ganyang characteristics kasi ang mga plants, no? Plant dormancy. And hindi ka naman pwedeng mabuhay kung galing sa patay. Yung ano, no? So cells, 'di ba? Cells do not develop from non-existing or non-pre-existing cells. So remember, that's one of the cell theory. So living to living, no? Hindi pwedeng non-living to living. Yan. So that is very simple. So very quick tayo. We've made use of technology. We've engaged you in thinking. So let's just go back. And that is just one part of my lesson, which is just the engage. And the rest, I could do other technologies if I wanted to. So that's just an example. So what I did was an assessment probe, which I use in the engage part of the lesson. Ayan po. Okay? So, pwede rin tayo mag-focus on TPAC on the quality of content. No? So let me now move further into the lesson and focus on the sum R. So this is something to do with the levels of technology. So may tatlong questions dito. How does sum R impact teaching learning process? Why do we need to apply the principles of sum R? Ang sagot po dito, kasi wala nang oras, pasensya na, Sir Dave. We need to transform learning. So transforming means you engage them in active learning. Yung isa po kasi sa kino-comment sa atin pag online is how can you ensure active learning when you are separated by space with your students. About this app you just use, is it a free app? Yes. So that's Spare Deck. But if you want to have more features, so magbabayad po tayo ng mga additional subscription. Okay, but I did not pay anything here. I just used my what they call the school's email. Yeah. So how is some are best applied in teaching and learning? So it is best applied in that lesson design, wherein you are being given the opportunity to design it, to move beyond that dotted line. So, pero hindi naman sinasabi na hindi maganda yung nasa baba. Because if that is the intent of your lesson, and that is to, for example, to harness low-level skills, pwede naman po talaga yun. No? So do we need to address the type of LMS infusing with some R? So this is one way for you to test your LMS if it's so flexible, because the LMS must be able to accommodate blending learning, engaged learning, extended learning, and all other features. Sige po. Let's move into digital taxonomy. So for digital taxonomy, there's a question. Is it advisable to frequently apply digital blooms? And some are in our topics of online discussion. I would say to check yes, because you want to know whether is this particular type of a question where would it be aligned? Is it in a lower level or is it in a higher level? Ano ba yung tina-target nating skills? Kasi kung ang course na tinuturo ko is a beginning course lang, then I don't need to overshoot to another course teaching or developing higher level skills. So for example, if you're going to apply questions, types of questions, iba-iba rin po yung level. No? So magandang kung sabihin natin, oh, this discussion forum will target the analyzing level in the cognitive domain, then these are the way I need to ask questions. So ayan po, even in evaluating and even creating. So there's specific way to write the questions. So does a teacher violate any theories? If he or she will just produce higher order thinking skills in higher assessment, will she violate? I think the violation would happen if you don't know what you're doing is in fact violating the essence of where your course is. For example, pang higher ed ka na, nagtuturo ka ng basic ed, pero yung level ng pagtuturo mo, yung level of difficulty mo ay pang higher ed, yan, kitang-kita po, no, ating violation. So you have to know where your course is. At the same time, when you are already in your institution, there should be alignment in everything. So lahat ng ginagawa mo sa course mo, dapat must be contributing to the institutional outcomes of your school. You are not departing, you are contributing within your program intended learning outcomes. So hindi ka nagde-design ng hindi o taliwas. No? You're not, para sabihin ng mga estudyante, ba't pinapagawa ba ito ni sir and ma'am? Okay? Pero parang di namin makita yung connection for us to become a better nurse or to become a better or future, let's say, engineer. So everything else must be aligned. So that has to be aligned within even your curriculum plan. Yung mga subjects, pag pinagdikit-dikit mo, para hindi kayo nag-overshoot. No? Yung ibang course, dapat beginning lessons. Yung ibang course, intermediate skills ang dinidevelop. And then yung sa dulo, yung mga high-level skills. Huwag kayong mag-overlap with each other. So yun ang sinasabi natin dito. Ayan. So there's another question on the community of inquiry. So ito naman po ang sinabi. How did your institution stimulate interest? So I think some of that I have mentioned. How do you monitor if they are still interested in the subject? While we don't have time anymore, but I think in the design pa lang. So dapat meron ka ng constructive alignment. Yan. Kasi nga sabi ko, kung mag-overshoot kasi ano yan, contradictory, sayang yung effort nila. So you start with a clear intent and then everything else should follow. So your learning episodes and the assessment methods must be incongruent with each other. There should be a mix of your teacher-centric and student-centric approaches. So if you have clear objectives, it is possible to select your strategy and then align with it with the evaluation. Now, if this is something clear to you, that's the time you get hold of the tools and then you align it with that. That's why at the bottom, you will see you have tech tools. So dun mo na siya ngayon, dun mo na ngayon hahanapin yung tech tools. And then the next would, you have to sequence that properly. So katulad po, kailan ba mangyayari? Mangyayari itong paggamit ko ng pair deck. So parang pinakita ko kanina po, di ba? I'm going to use that at the first part of my lesson. So how would we know that we can monitor? If it's an exam, we can have remote proctoring tools. There are different types of assessment. So one that I would want to share would be video-based assessment. So video-based assessment would be like, there's a video playing. For example, ito, we have this kind of a tool in the university. So habang nagle-lesson si teacher, hindi buo niyang papanoorin. In the middle, I have like questions. Hindi mag-move ang video hanggat hindi mo nasagot ito. So this is like asynchronous, hindi to live. While later on, I could monitor how many of you answer the questions. Maglaland yan sa learning management system. Yes, that's good. H5B also has that feature. May case-based scenario and branching din yon. And then you can also know here how long they stay in the video. Ayan. So your teaching presence, of course, is important. So kailangan very organized din ang iyong online course. For example, give them, let's say, milestones. Okay, in the institutional level, we have a way to know what's going on in each particular teacher. So I could hover on one bar there. At makikita ko kung ito ay nagklase o hindi. If I click on one of those square, magmamagnify pa sa akin kung anong ginagawa ni teacher. Well, I'm just talking because I'm the head of the online learning. But this is accessible in the dean's level. Hindi siya accessible sa teacher. Kikita namin kung nagpa-flatline, no, o hindi, no? So kapag magpa-flatline, hindi maganda yung itsura, parang ECG lang yung class mo, kailangan ka ng tulungan, no? So for the last, pasensya na, Sir Dave, do I have to stop?
Yes, please go ahead.
Opo. So this is the last on UDL. So there's a question, how can the various strategies for presenting content be used or maximized in the light of the fact that majority lack the necessary devices? So I think we've addressed this the last time. One is collaborative learning. So may mga teachers would be developing materials or designing the lesson for distance remote learning, yung mga self-learning packets. So meron naman for blended and meron naman for fully online. That's one thing. So again, go back to your constructive alignment. And then try to look at what areas. So for example, if it's a science class, this is the signature pedagogy of your lesson. This is how you sequence the lesson. I'm going to use a book, physical book kasi nga printed, no? So bibili ang mga schools ng libro. So I'm going to use a book by Phoenix, for example. I'm going to map it out. So this would be grade 10. Let's say third quarter and week 4. So the topic would be on genetic manipulation, DNA profiling. So I already plotted here some of the activities that I'm going to do, even the assessment strategy, and even the e-learning part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to prepare 2 sets lang. So for my students, I'm going to highlight the stage of the lesson And then I'm going to prepare no technology and with technology. Depende pa sa'yo, no? So if you have time in the technology, you can put there low level, medium level, or high level of technology kasi pwede naman yon. So just for the sake of the example, if it's no technology, I could still do the engagement part of my lesson by using the laboratory of the book. While if it's technology, I could probably create an animated equivalent. That's what I mean here. In the second, still in the engage part, wherein I'm going to ask students to have a worksheet, then magpiprint worksheet ako. If it's with technology, then I could probably be using, still achieving the same outcome, a base pairing online activity. Pareho pa din. Base pairing pa rin yung lesson, yung particular activity na yun. So for the explore part, wherein I'm going to ask students to make use of the pictures presented either in the printed or in the animated presentation and be able to analyze how they look like in terms of the morphology. Pwede namang worksheet uli yun, susulat nila ng kamay, or we can do collaboration. Kung pwede ako mag-group work ngayon kasi they could in fact simultaneously work on the worksheet together because I'm going to use Google Sheet. So it really depends. So mapansin natin with technology or no technology, I could in fact achieve the same thing without departing on the outcomes, without affecting the outcome. So in the same way, in the explain part of my lesson, it's either if it's in a face-to-face class, I'm going to use the actual apparatus of, let's say, here of the PCR, of the polymerase chain reaction. By the way, I'm a science teacher. So kung no technology naman, then there could be illustrations and printed materials. So nasa galing sa libro, for example, para maintindihan yung process. Or kung may technology, then we can use a simulation for the actual process. And next,
Ilan mo na sila ka-orgs? Ha? Ilan mo na sila ka-orgs?
Pa-off na lang po ng audio. So for the elaborate part of the lesson, ganun uli, I could focus on worksheets. They could shade it manually. Whereas with technology, then we can use different application for the visualization of gel electrophoresis. So yan po ang mga different ways to engage the learners. Pwede kang gumawa talaga, no? So as long as you achieve the outcome in the end. So what you have learned so far, so ang last tanong po, pasensya na po, nag-overshoot ako. Which of the following teaching, learning frameworks discussed is the best or effective in the time of pandemic? These are the ones that we have discussed. That's the BIM, yung kaninang pinakita ko po. What do you think is the best one? The answer is they all will help you in different areas of remote teaching and learning. Ayan po. Ayan. So they will all help you. Ayan po. And with that, the reason for teaching you this, because not all online learning is created equal. Quality is the key. Ayan po. So with that, thank you very much for engaging with me today. Marami pong salamat. I'm going to stop share now.
Iyan. Thank you po. Ma'am Ramos. It was very enlightening, and I don't think anyone is going to complain because I'm pretty sure that they have learned a lot for this afternoon. Yes, I'd like to turn it over for a few minutes to our project leader, Sir Dave. Go ahead.
Okay. What's our takeaway for today? Of course, our speaker, yung suki natin kasi in the professional development with this, tama si Ma'am Ramos, I think 2 years ago, we delivered a similar online training, and it was struggle for our participants and to us also, trying to inculcate with them the value of online skills development. And here we are doing, but primarily focus on the technology enhanced flexible learning. We learn a lot about the frameworks, about the models, and of course, our speaker also introduced to us some tools that we could use. And she also introduced to us different, and she mentioned about the different models, the different strategies. And our topic for next week, just hold on with your questions about strategy from face to face to online, because next week our topic is the transitioning process, the transition from face to face to technology enhanced. And I am so proud to introduce to you that the Commission on Higher Education will be with us next week, a member of the technical working group who crafted our CMO on technology in or on flexible learning, rather, on flexible learning. So if you have questions, write them down so that you can shoot those questions, post those questions in our open forum, and that's gonna be for next week. Okay, and I hope you learned something new. And the topics actually from the
Naman
last
siya.
week
Hindi siya
and today's discussion is basically connected. And hopefully for next week you can also join, or you can also um, embed all those understandings while we transition, particularly uh, sabi nga ni speaker natin ngayon, there's no turning back, and that's also coming from the Commission on Higher Education. So, which means we have to go on with our transition, perhaps from face-to-face to fully online, then from fully online to flexible learning, or shall they say, unlimited face-to-face. So once again, thank you very much, Cheryl, Ma'am Ramos. Of course, plug in, join the Philippine E-Learning Society.
May
Thank you very much.
plug in pa si Sir Dave. One comment on the tools, parang binigyan tayo ng cheat code. Ang daming cheat code binigay si Ma'am Ramos towards the so everyone else has been asking if they are free, and I think yeah, you can browse over some of the slides, and there were several tools that she was able to share. Ang daming tools, parang nagbibigay ng pakonsensya sa akin, especially when I'm doing my teaching in the class. Okay, so yes, once again, thank you very much, Ma'am Ramos. And Belle, please proceed to the next. I think, yes, we have our certificate, yeah, because it's already online. So, bigyan lang ng online certificate. So, yes, it's the same certificate that we have presented to our speakers. By the way, like I said, no, wala tayong problema that we have extended. I'm pretty sure that everyone is happy about extending even for a bit. I'm pretty sure that they have learned a lot. So, our certificate is signed by Sir Dave Marshall, our director for the Silliman Online University Learning. So counterpart ng Silliman. And then of course we have our Vice President for Academic Affairs, Erjud Paul Cleope, also joining in, signing our certificate. So next slide. Yes, allow me to take this opportunity to share to you through the chat yung attendance, and please wait a bit. I will share it through the chat so that everyone can just click it rather than you're going to type that later on. Okay. Give me a bit. So it's on its way, and there you go. So please go ahead and access that. And then moving on to the next. Yeah, we still have our evaluation, by the way. I would like to ask everyone to please fill up the evaluation form also. So I'm sending it now through the chat. Okay. So of course, please don't forget your forum questions and the knowledge check. And of course, we still have our activities set. And yes, and go ahead. And for next week, as already indicated by Sir Dave, that we have from CHED, a member of the technical working group on flexible learning. So Associate Professor Maria Nina Calaca. And we hope to continue. And of course, definitely, we will have a transition from this week going into next week. May transition din tayo. We're applying our transition. Go ahead, Ma'am Lobel. And I think this is the part wherein we are going to ask our participants to turn on their cameras for the photo opportunity. Please test your microphone, Lobel, if you can get them to, because you'll be asking them to.
Hello, everyone.
Yes,
Kindly
go
share
ahead.
your camera so I could take a snapshot. I have 6 groups here in the gallery. I'll start counting now. Hold your pretty smiles. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. Next. 1, 2, 3. Smile. I'm now on the 4th. 1, 2, 3. Smile.
Let me check na, no? Ganda naman mag-check ng mga background ng ating mga kasama.
1,
Go ahead,
2,
go ahead.
3. Smile. And one last. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much for sharing your camera.
Okay. Props to Ma'am Bergado for having a Christmas tree already. Kitang-kita po ang Christmas tree ni Ma'am Bergado. Oh, kitang-kita
Merry Christmas,
natin yan.
everyone.
Merry Christmas na. Yes. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. Go ahead, Lobel. Ma'am Lobel. Yes. We hope to see you next week po. Okay. Thank you. See you. And good afternoon.
Thank you po.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Salamat po.
Thank you so much.
KPK.